Well, it was a big issue today in Canberra. I suspect it will be this week. The religious discrimination legislation, first promised by Malcolm Turnbull back in 2017. This legislation has been pledged to strengthen protections for individuals and faith groups' freedom of information, freedom of religion. Modified, amended, poked and prodded. The bill's gone through many incantations, but it's only just within the last hour won party room support. Now, I'm going to breach party room by asking Kevin Andrews who said what in the room. That's inappropriate. I won't go there. But I'm interested in the arguments because it's unravelling fast. If the last few moments of the Parliament are any indication, this is the last sitting fortnight, as I said, before the Parliament will then end up being prorogued and an election held. Kevin Andrews, who was in the room and spoke, the Liberal member for Menzies, joins me now. Kevin, it's won the backing of the party room, yes. I think that's good news for the Prime Minister. He has a mandate for this legislation. It went to the 2019 election. For the life of me, I can't understand how a Trent Zimmermann, who was there at that election, put this on the table and got a mandate to support it, as did Bridget Archer, who late this evening says that she thinks this bill will cost lives. She said that in the chamber. Why on earth can't your colleagues get it? They took this to the people said what they said in 2019. Why isn't it passed already?
Well, it's gone through, as you say, a lot of twists and turns to get to this point, Peter, but the result this afternoon in the second part of the party meeting was that the party room agreed on the bill. There were some minor clarifying amendments which the Attorney-General brought to the party room, but everybody agreed on that. There was a second provision which relates to removing some exemptions which Labor put in the Sex Discrimination Act that enable currently a school, for example, to expel a gay student, and there's an agreement to remove that. There was then some further discussion, as you've seen in public discussion as well as in the party room, about whether or not some other exemptions that are in the Sex Discrimination Act should be removed now, or should they wait the outcome of an inquiry by the Australian Law Reform Commission. And the outcome of the discussion was that the party room agreed that these matters should go to the Australian Law Reform Commission and come back and report in the future about if any changes should be made. So I think that's the common sense position that we've landed on today, and I expect that the party room will continue to support it.
Well, it's 11 minutes to midnight. If it's intended to go to the Senate for a vote next week, it'll have to get out of the House perhaps tomorrow, but certainly Thursday. Are we likely to see it go to a vote this week in the House?
I believe so. I've informally been told that the debate might go on for some hours tonight. That hasn't been officially clarified at this stage, but I expect that debate, if necessary, will go on beyond the normal 8 p.m. Rising of the House tonight, and then there could be more debate tomorrow, but I expect it'll be out of the House either tomorrow or even tonight.
I talked about the commitment made at the 2019 election and your government's mandate. How important is this legislation to faith communities? I mean, is it a deal breaker for their vote that this is dealt with before the election?
Well, they've put their trust in the government on this issue. As you said, we promised this. We've consulted widely. The faith communities have gone through that process, iterations of consultations and drafts. They've agreed to it, they support it, and that's regardless of what faith community it is. So having landed at that position, I think it's incumbent on the government now to try and get the legislation through the Parliament. That would be showing our trust in those who in turn place their trust in the government.
The opposition have accused this bill of being a Trojan horse for discrimination. How fair is that?
That's unfair because there's other discrimination legislation. There's sex discrimination legislation, for example, that currently exists. The one area of discrimination where there's not legislation is in relation to religion or religious freedom. So this is balancing it up. And if you look at the international jurisdiction, the international jurisprudence on these issues, there's no hierarchy of rights. All rights are supposed to be given equal value to the extent that they don't offend other rights. And so what this seeks to achieve achieve is actually to say that, yes, we should respect discrimination in other areas. We shouldn't allow discrimination in other areas. We should respect the law in those areas. But what's been missing from the equation up to date has been laws in relation to religious discrimination, and this in effect would balance it up, would put it in its proper place in that equality of rights and responsibilities that we have under international instruments such as the United Nations Human Rights Declaration or the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So this is actually finishing something that probably should have been done a long time ago.
Right, I haven't got much time, but you're a Conservative like me and a lawyer. Convince me that codifying these rights is the right thing to do, because I much prefer having all the rights other than those government take away from me by laws. I don't like this idea that government just gives me rights by law and I lose then, by extension, everything else.
I would have agreed with you 5 years ago, Peter, but I think the incursion into the freedoms for religious expression and religious practice over the last few years. I mean, we saw an archbishop being effectively prosecuted before a tribunal for simply expressing a 2,000-year-old message from the Bible. We've seen people, sports stars being harangued. We've seen people in universities being told that they shouldn't be part of some Christian foundation. So there's been all these incursions, and that's why I think we do need to codify the law at this stage.
All right. Okay, thank you, Kevin.